I guess just to start off with roster-wise, who's
killing you, isn't it? It's killing you, isn't it? Who's what now?
who's eligible to practice, play, that sort of thing?
Everybody's eligible to practice except for Elijah. But, I mean, it's really, as I said before, it's kind of a moot point because of his wrist, and he's not even able to run now because he hurt his toe. So, get them all out of the way now.
Is Holden eligible to play?
As of right now, no. But he is eligible to practice.
Is that a clearinghouse thing or what?
No, there's not. It's not. He's not involved in the clearinghouse.
Okay.
Clearinghouse only for freshmen.
Do you hope to have answers before the season starts, or can this drag out?
I mean, I think that we'll have a final answer probably at the end of the week, I would guess. That's a guess.
What does that do to the way you practice, not knowing for sure who
This-
does what, when, where, and why?
This time of the year, Bob, I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference. I mean, I think as we get closer, it makes a big difference, but
Are you still waiting on any kind of ruling with Elijah, or is that finalized now? Or
honestly, I don't know. I mean, and honestly, I don't know how much I'm allowed to get into. I get in enough trouble without your help.
Is it safe to say, Bob, that regardless of the reason, he's probably not going to play this year?
I think, yeah, I would, yeah, I think it'd be weighed more that way than the other way.
Harris played overseas. I guess he played in that touring team or whatever. Have you seen any difference in him from then to now?
Well, he and Terry both did. Actually, Terry, and Gary all did. I think the biggest difference with both of those guys is their physical strength. And their demeanor. You know, they're so much more confident. They know what they're doing. They know what's expected of them. You know, they're not running around kind of wondering what they're supposed to do. And they both have done a really good job of trying to help the younger guys.
Coach, obviously last season was a grind, physically and mentally, especially on yourself. Can you talk about maybe some things you've done in the off season to kind of relax yourself or refresh yourself?
I don't think I did anything really. I did. I spent a couple of weeks with my family, which I haven't done in a while. But really, didn't get away that much. I mean, honestly, less than usual. Usually, I can kind of sneak out and get a little fishing in, and I got very little of that this summer.
Along those lines, do you feel, with last year behind you now, almost reborn and regenerated? I mean, because you could tell that last year took a toll on you.
I've never had it happen to me, Bob. You know, I mean, that was a first. I've never not been able to get guys to play as hard as I, kind of wanted them to play. And I mean, obviously we had some deficiencies. You know, we went into a entirely different league in terms of style of play, and in terms of officiating, and in terms of travel and everything else, and we didn't. We weren't very prepared for it, quite frankly.
Coach, you talked a lot last year after a lot of the losses about fixing the problems. And it's one thing I think to fix it during the season, but when you have an off season, there's probably a lot more that can be done. Clearly, roster has changed a lot, but are there things that now, with the time that you had with them this summer, you say like, all right, these are the things that we had to focus on because you pinpoint certain things that you had to get better at once you were able to kind of sit back and take a look at the whole picture?
Well, I think the biggest thing is when you play an 18-game league schedule, and it's, it is, and they would admit that it is. It's an entirely different league in terms of style of play and officiating. So much more spread offenses, so much more penetrate and pitch, so much more predicated on pick and roll, and spread. And you look at the Big East when we were in the Big East, and that's what Louisville did, but there wasn't a whole lot of other people that maybe Villanova a little bit, but not to the extent. There just weren't teams in the Big East that they'd give the four guy the ball and let him break people down and make decisions with the ball, and that happened frequently in the Big 12, and it wasn't as physical.
So is the bigger concern then maybe finding your own forward to do that and all those things that they did to you, or is it figure out the way to then stop those things?
Well, we got to do it. We got to figure out a way to stop them. As bad as we were, if you really go back and look at it, the number of games that maybe we could have, should have won. You look at Kansas State. Kansas State ties for the league championship. They give up 60 points a game. That's pretty much what we used to do. If we give up 60 instead of 67, 66 point whatever, we got a chance to win a whole lot more games. We didn't guard. And I think the style of play had a little bit to do with that, but we didn't guard with the kind of resolve that we've guarded with in the past.
And going to a new league make you change any basic philosophies, or does that remain the same? And what might we see different about this year's team from last year's?
Well, Bob, we and I don't know, maybe it wasn't the right thing, but you go recruit a guy like Dennis because everybody in the Big East had one, But then looking back, when we were really good, it was because Wellington Smith could drag people away from the basket, and we didn't. We did have Dennis, we did have the big body, but he didn't play near as much as the people who could drag people away from the basket. And, I think the one thing that we've really tried to make a conscious effort of is recruiting guys who can make shots. And I think, now whether they do or not, but they're very capable of making shots. You take Remy can step out and make shots, obviously. Nate can step out and make shots. Devin Williams is not going to stretch it to three, but Devin can step out and make shots. Brandon can step out. I think Kevin Noreen has figured out that he needs to be a more consistent perimeter shooter, and he's worked very hard on that.
So Bob, do those guys that you have recruited essentially to drag people away from the basket, do they help you solve the other side of the equation, which you've said is your guys didn't, couldn't, wouldn't guard?
That remains to be seen. I can't positively tell you yes or no. 2 hours a week is kind of hard to judge.
What have you learned in 2 hours a week?
How do you learn? What?
I said, what have you learned in the time that you've been able to spend with them this summer?
I think their demeanor is so much different. They're their enthusiasm, I think. Their enthusiasm and their, I guess enthusiasm, I guess is the best way to put it. You know, I think what we've had and what we lacked was a few guys that just, you know, took to heart that don't waste days. You know, they understood the importance of coming in every day and getting better, and I think we lacked that a little bit. You know, I've never really been one of those guys that thought that, you know, it was bad chemistry. I think because everybody was either hated me or were scared to death of me. You know, so so they were all kind of on the same page. You know, but we just didn't do a very good job of a lot of things, you know, obviously. But I think, again, I think the biggest is you look at Kansas State, who at times had trouble scoring a little bit as well. And I'm not trying to say anything bad about them, obviously, but they guarded. They did a great job of guarding, and they end up tying for a conference championship because they guarded and they won close games.
When you look at the five guys you have coming back, mixing in with the new recruits, you know, how do you get all the pieces to mesh? You know, with
Well, the way we've played for years, Justin, is we've had guys who could pass and catch the ball, and a year ago we just didn't pass the ball very well. There were games a year ago we didn't hardly pass it, and you know, I think I tried to make changes. I tried to, you know, I thought maybe we change some things and fix some things, but the reality is, the way we play, you're allowed to use your strengths. I mean, you look at the guys that have been in the program. Joe Mazzulla couldn't make shots, but he scored because, you know, we could spread people with other people who could make shots, and he was able to drive to the basket. And for whatever reason, I think we had a bunch of guys who felt like maybe that they could do things a different way, maybe better. And after a while, I think we tried to see if that was the case, and obviously it wasn't the case. So I think we just need to go back to doing what we've been good at doing for a long, long time.
Coach, with Marcus Smart coming back and Wiggins coming into the league, there's a lot of attention on the league this year. Where do you think the Big 12 is going to rank in terms of power conferences this season? Do you think it's best in the country, one of the very best? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I think Marcus Smart is the best guard that I've coached against since Jason Kidd, and that takes in a whole bunch of guards. And he's a lot like Jason. It's just his will to win, his will to he wills other people to win. I think he's, you know, I thought he would be the first player taken in a draft if he had come out a year ago, you know, for those reasons. But I mean, I don't know. How do you? I don't know. I mean, there's been so much change, and I mean, I think people think now the ACC is a whole lot better. You know, it remains to be seen. It'll all play out.
What have you seen out of those newcomers so far? What do you expect out of those guys?
They can make shots. They're capable of making shots. Now, whether they do or they don't, I don't know. But they're very capable of making shots. We made a conscious effort to bring guys in that could make shots.
Just being able to start practice earlier this year, has that helped at all, especially with the new guys coming in?
But today's our first day. I don't know. Ask me in a couple weeks. I'll have a better idea. I think what it does, it gives you a little more latitude in terms of, I spent a bunch of time with Kevin O'Neill a while ago, and he talked about 3 on, 1 off, you know, and we've always kind of gone pretty much 6 days a week, and I thought it'd make you tougher, you know. I thought it, and I think it has. But I wonder, you know, you go 3 on and 1 off, maybe you're fresher, not physically, because I mean those guys recover pretty fast, but I think mentally, you know, hopefully we're able to concentrate a lot better, stay in things better with 3 on and 1 off. Because I understand. I mean, you get day 5 and day 6, it gets a little tough towards the end.
When you run your motion, point guard brings it up and makes a pass, and there's really no set point guard at that point. Do you see Aaron Harris as a kid who's throwing that first pass or catching it? I mean, he's been kind of working on
It doesn't. It really doesn't matter. I mean, if you think about it, we played Day at point guard. We played Devin Ebanks at point guard. And I think that was the strength of our team. I mean, we had Day could handle it, Devin could handle it, and Trucker, Joe, whoever we had at a point could handle it. I mean, we didn't have KJ or Wells trying to do that. But I think that's the strength of the offense, is you can do what you can do, you know, and I think the battle is getting guys to do what they can do and not things that they can't do. And we seemingly had a bunch of guys that were just hell-bent on proving all the things that they couldn't do rather than accentuating the good things that they did. And the worst part is then you put other guys in and they were about the same. So I think these guys are, I think they understand a little bit better about doing things you can do and staying away from things you can't do.
Do you try to keep Aaron and Terry together, or do they rotate? Or
I don't think it matters. I mean, we got 4 guys in 3 spots, maybe. I don't know. We could probably play Nate there. We could probably play Remy there a little bit. But, you know, basically we've got 4 guys that are going to play those 3 spots. Sometimes, you know, I don't know. I mean, I've had years where sometimes you worry about depth, but at the same time, I think you can coach guys more, you know. Sometimes maybe you coach too many guys. So you kind of take those guys and, I mean, that's what you got, and so you spend an awful lot of time with them. You know, I mean, one of the last teams I had at Cincinnati, we won 31, and I didn't really have a backup point guard. And well, when I had Maxill and Hicks, that was it. My guy coming in was 6'3" to replace those 2 guys. And we won like 27. But those guys understood too. They got smarter. You know, they didn't foul as much. I can remember telling Bobby Brandon, you know, Bob, last year I wanted you to go in and knock people on their ass. You know, and when you fouled, I cheered. You can't do that now. I got to have you in a game. You know, and guys' roles change as they get better.
The front line, is Noreen kind of the mainstay right now?
Well, he knows what he's doing. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, he's been very dependable. You know, he's had a tendency. He's a guy that's got to stay out of foul trouble. He's been in foul trouble. I mean, I think that's the one thing that. But you know, we had enough guys that it wasn't such a big deal. It's a bigger deal now. He's got to stay out of foul trouble.
Has he essentially become a center?
We don't have centers. We had a center that didn't work out very well.
Talk about doing what you can do and not what you can't. And I'm sure there were people who were more obviously not doing that well. But Gary Brown, is that a reason maybe why he sort of seemed to take a step back last year? And are you seeing him embracing that this year as, don't try to do too much, do what you're capable of?
I think Gary'd be the first one to tell you he had a terrible year. And I think that's what we appreciate about Gary. I mean, we got other guys that think it's somebody else's fault. And when you look at their stats, I mean, they couldn't have had a worse year. And they're guys that should have been coming in apologizing, saying, man, I'm sorry, I was so bad, instead of blaming other people. And Gary doesn't blame other people. Gary knows he had a bad year. And Gary's been really good. I mean, he's been really, really good. He's had a great attitude. He's really worked hard. We had a lot of brother-in-law going on last year. Don't beat me and I won't beat you. Let me shoot and I'll let you shoot. It's kind of like the noon hour games that Coach Ford's so proud of talking about, Let me shoot, I'll let you shoot. It's not like that now.
Somewhat of that, because you talked about what the new guys do and how you recruited to the league.
Pardon?
You talked about how you recruited to the league and brought the new guys in who can make shots and kind of adapt to what maybe you couldn't do last year. But the guys who you do have back, do they have to, they have to change, I'm guessing, toward certain things they couldn't do or certain things that the league requires.
I don't know, Mike. I think sometimes I can remember people saying after Danny Fortson went to the NBA that we were harder to guard because we had so many guys could score. And it was so much more distributed, and you couldn't just go in saying, we have to stop this guy. I still would take Danny, don't get me wrong, but opposing coaches just said, you're so much harder to guard because you don't know where it's coming from, and hopefully that's what we can be. I mean, I think, everybody understands Terry and Aaron are going to score. Terry shot 48% from 3 in league play. That's pretty good. Who am I going to put inside?
So you consider 5 out.
I would say we don't have much of a choice.
Coach, you mentioned, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
You mentioned Elijah's had some injury issues. Any other injury issues that you're seeing right now with the guys that may be a concern?
I don't think so. I mean, we've had some ankles and those kind of things, but no, we're good. Elijah, I mean, I'm hoping it doesn't end up being turf toe because that takes a long time. But it's kind of what he did.
The schedule, specifically start times, it seemed like you guys caught some breaks, and it seems like they listened to some of the recommendations the school was making as far as, especially the early January games getting 2 on the road.
Well, I think contrary to what some people think, I think the start times were more of them trying to help us than it was we didn't deserve to be on ESPN. I don't think anybody pays any attention anymore, whether it's ESPN, ESPN2, or ESPNU. I mean, it's what game do you want to watch? So I mean, I don't think it's that at all. I think they listen. I mean, it's obvious it hurt our crowds. 9 o'clock starts really hurt our crowds. 9 o'clock starts on a weekday when you're coming from Charleston, and if you're coming from Logan or Matewan or Williamson or Harper's Ferry, it's hard. Man, it's hard. And I think the commissioner deserves a lot of credit because I mean he was very vocal about we've got to try to help these people as much as we can help them because we were at a terrible disadvantage.
Hey, Coach.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.